I trusted her because she worked at a bank. I thought she understood responsibility, security, risk. She did understand. That's how she destroyed me. At 70 years old, I went from debt-free to owing $485,000, and I can't even prove the investments existed. I never thought I'd meet someone like Danielle Cruz at a banking seminar. I was in Manila for 3 months, just exploring retirement options, attending events to understand the financial landscape. I'd spent 50 years in the insurance industry in Chicago. I knew numbers, I knew risk, I knew how to smell a bad deal from across the room, or so I thought. The seminar was held at a luxury hotel in Makati, professional, sleek, the kind of place that makes you feel like serious business happens there. I sat in the back row, taking notes on Philippine investment regulations, tax implications for foreign retirees, that sort of thing. Then she stood up to present, Danielle Cruz, loan officer at one of the country's largest banks. She wore a tailored navy suit, her hair pulled back tight, minimal jewelry, no charm, no flirtation, just pure professionalism. She talked about wealth management strategies, asset leveraging, investment opportunities in emerging markets. Her presentation was sharp, data-driven, confident, the kind of confidence I'd spent 5 decades building in boardrooms back home. I was impressed. After her session ended, I approached her near the coffee station. I wanted to ask about foreign property ownership restrictions. "Excuse me, Miss Cruz. Great presentation. I have a question about land titles." She turned to me with a polite smile. Professional, not warm but not cold either. "Of course. Are you considering purchasing property here?" "Maybe. I'm exploring options. I'm retired, looking at different countries for the next chapter." "Retired?" She glanced at my name tag. Harvey Mansfield, insurance executive, Chicago. She'd actually read it. Most people didn't. "That's right. 49 years with the same company. Retired last year. And now you're looking at the Philippines, among other places. Thailand, Vietnam. Still deciding." She handed me her business card. Crisp, professional, embossed. "If you'd like to discuss investment opportunities or financial planning for expats, I specialize in that area. We have several products designed specifically for foreign retirees." I took the card. "I appreciate it, but I'm not really looking to borrow money. I'm debt-free. Plan to stay that way." She smiled. Not pushy, just understanding. That's what most people say before they realize what they've been missing. I laughed. Missing? I've avoided debt my entire life. I respect that. But there's a difference between avoiding debt and avoiding opportunity. The wealthiest people I work with don't see capital as something to hoard. They see it as something to deploy. I wasn't sure how to respond to that. She didn't press. She just smiled again. "Think about it. If you'd like to talk, my number's on the card. No obligation. Just coffee and conversation." Then she walked away. Confident. Professional. Not trying to sell me anything. That's what struck me. She wasn't like the other Filipinas I'd met during my 3 months here. No charm offensive. No flattery. No attempts to befriend the lonely American retiree. Just business. I respected that. I put her card in my wallet and forgot about it for 2 weeks. Then one night, sitting alone in my serviced apartment in BGC, staring at my retirement account statements, I started thinking about her words. What had I been missing? I'd worked 50 years, saved diligently, avoided risk, stayed debt-free. My Chicago property was paid off. My retirement accounts were solid. I had enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But was I being too cautious? Was I leaving money on the table? I'd always prided myself on being conservative, smart, responsible. But what if conservative was just another word for fearful? What if I was so focused on not losing that I'd forgotten how to win? I pulled out her card. Danielle Cruz, Senior Loan Officer, Wealth Management Division. I turned it over in my fingers. It felt expensive, professional, real. I told myself I'd just call to ask a few questions. Nothing serious. Just professional curiosity. I dialed her number the next morning. She answered on the second ring. Danielle Cruz speaking. Miss Cruz, this is Harvey Mansfield. We met at the banking seminar 2 weeks ago. Mr. Mansfield. Of course. The insurance executive from Chicago. How are you? I'm well. I've been thinking about what you said, about capital deployment. I'd like to have that coffee conversation if you're still available. Absolutely. Are you free tomorrow? There's a cafe near my office in Makati. Quiet. Good for discussions. Tomorrow works. Perfect. I'll text you the address. Does 10 in the morning suit you? That's fine. Looking forward to it, Mr. Mansfield. She hung up. Professional. Efficient. No small talk. I told myself it was just a conversation, just professional networking. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. I was curious. And curiosity, I would learn, is a dangerous thing when you're 70 and lonely and sitting on a pile of money in a foreign country. I showed up at the cafe the next morning 15 minutes early. Old habit. Danielle arrived exactly on time. She ordered black coffee. I ordered the same. We sat outside under an umbrella, overlooking the Makati skyline. So, she said, pulling out a leather portfolio, tell me about your financial situation. Not the details, just the broad strokes. What are you working with? I hesitated. I'd never discussed my finances with a stranger before. But she wasn't really a stranger. She was a banking professional. This was her job. I own my home in Chicago outright, paid off 30 years ago, worth about $600,000. I have retirement accounts totaling around $900,000. Social Security kicks in fully next year. No debt, no dependents. My daughter's married and settled. She nodded, making notes. Solid foundation. Very responsible. And here in the Philippines? What's your plan? I'm renting month to month in BGC. Just exploring, seeing if I want to settle here long term. And if you do, maybe buy a condo. Something small. Keep it simple. Cash purchase? Of course. She smiled. That same professional smile. Mr. Mansfield, can I be direct with you? Please. You're being too conservative with your money. I frowned. I'm being smart. You're being fearful. There's a difference. I felt a flash of defensiveness. I've managed my finances just fine for 50 years. I don't doubt that, but managing and growing are two different strategies. You've managed, you've preserved, you've protected, but have you ever grown? My retirement accounts have grown through market returns, passive growth. I'm talking about active growth, strategic growth. I leaned back. I'm 70 years old. I don't need to chase growth. Why not? The question caught me off guard. Because I'm retired. I'm done working. So you're just going to sit on your assets for the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years? Let inflation slowly erode your purchasing power? Watch your money shrink in real terms? That's a bit dramatic. Is it? Look at the numbers. U.S. Inflation's been running at 3 to 4% annually. Your savings account pays what? 0.5%? You're losing purchasing power every single year. That $600,000 house you paid off? In 10 years, with inflation, it'll need to be worth $750,000 just to maintain the same real value. Your retirement accounts? Same thing. You think you're being conservative, but you're actually bleeding value slowly. I didn't like the way that sounded, but I couldn't argue with the math. So, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you stop thinking like someone who's preserving wealth and start thinking like someone who's deploying it. You have assets. Use them. Leverage them. Make them work harder. Leverage means debt. Leverage means strategy. The wealthiest people in the world use leverage. They don't let their money sit idle. They put it to work. I shook my head. I've never borrowed money in my life. Exactly. And that's why you're in the same financial position you were in 20 years ago. Adjusted for inflation, you've been running in place. That stung, because part of me wondered if she was right. I'd been so proud of being debt-free, but had I been too cautious? Had I missed opportunities? What kind of opportunities are you talking about? She opened her portfolio and pulled out several glossy brochures: real estate developments, agricultural ventures, renewable energy projects. The Philippines is a growth market. Foreign investment is pouring in. Infrastructure projects, tourism, export agriculture. The returns are significant if you know where to look. And you know where to look. It's my job to know. I studied the brochures. They look professional, legitimate. Beautiful photos of beach resorts, solar farms, organic farms. Projected returns of 20 to 40% annually. These seem too good to be true. They're not guarantees. They're projections based on market conditions. But the opportunities are real. And they're available to investors who are willing to act. By borrowing money, by unlocking capital that's currently doing nothing for you, your Chicago property is just sitting there. It's paid off. It's not generating income. It's not appreciating significantly. It's dead weight. It's my home. It's an asset. And assets should work for you, not the other way around. I felt something shifting inside me. Resistance, curiosity, fear, possibility. I need to think about this. Of course, I'm not asking you to decide anything today. I just want you to consider whether your current strategy is actually serving you or just making you feel safe. She finished her coffee and stood. Think about it, Mr. Mansfield. If you want to talk more, call me. If not, no hard feelings. But ask yourself this. In 10 years, do you want to look back and wonder what you missed? Or do you want to look back knowing you made your money work as hard as you did? She left me sitting there with her brochures and her question. I told myself she was just a saleswoman, just trying to earn a commission. But her words stayed with me. Was I being smart or just scared? Conservative or just comfortable? I went home and looked at my financial statements again. Really looked at them. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if I'd been playing it too safe. Danielle and I started meeting for coffee every week. It wasn't dating. It wasn't social. It was professional. Strategic discussions about finance and investment. At least that's what I told myself. She always brought materials, market reports, feasibility studies, glossy presentations. She'd spread them across the table between our coffee cups and walk me through opportunities. This one's in Cebu, she said one morning, pointing to a high-rise condominium development. Pre-construction pricing, 30% below market value. Units are selling fast. Foreign buyers, local investors. Completion in 18 months. You could flip it immediately for a 40% gain, or it could get delayed or canceled. It's backed by Ayala Land, one of the most reputable developers in the country. They've delivered 200 projects over 40 years. Still a risk. Everything's a risk, Harvey. Walking across the street is a risk. The question is whether the potential return justifies the risk. She slid another folder toward me. Agricultural export, organic coconut products, Davao region, EU certified. Contracts already signed with buyers in Germany and France. They need capital to scale production. Investors come in now? They're projecting 60% returns within 12 months. 60% seems unrealistic. It's agriculture, high demand, limited supply, premium pricing. The numbers work. I studied the projections. They did look compelling, but I'd spent my career in insurance. I knew how to make anything look good on paper. What's the catch? There's no catch, just timing. These opportunities don't stay open long. Savvy investors move fast, and unsavvy investors lose money. She smiled, not offended, just patient. You're skeptical. I respect that. But skepticism, without action, is just fear wearing a smarter suit. I laughed despite myself. That's pretty good. It's true. Look, Harvey, I'm not trying to pressure you, But I've been doing this for 12 years. I've seen conservative investors like you sit on the sidelines, convinced they're being smart, watching opportunities pass them by. Then 5 years later, they see what those properties are worth, what those ventures returned, and they regret it. Or they see them fail and feel relieved they didn't invest. Sure, sometimes. But you know what I've never seen? I've never seen someone regret taking a calculated risk and winning. I've only seen people regret the risks they didn't take. Over the following weeks, she showed me more opportunities. A renewable energy project in Mindanao, solar farms backed by government incentives, a beach resort development in Palawan, luxury ecotourism, pre-selling at discounted rates. Each one looked better than the last. Each one came with professional presentations, third-party feasibility studies, projected returns. How do you find all these? I asked one afternoon. It's my job. I work with developers, exporters, project managers. They come to the bank for financing. I see the deals before they go public. I know which ones are solid, and you're offering them to me. I'm offering them to select clients who have the capital and the vision to act. Why me? She looked at me directly. Not flirtatious, just honest. Because you're smart. You've built wealth through discipline and strategy, but you're stuck in preservation mode. You're managing assets like you're still 40 and afraid of losing your house, but you're 70. Your house is paid off. Your retirement is secure. You don't need to protect anymore. You need to deploy. And I think you know that. You just need someone to give you permission. That hit me, because she was right. I did feel stuck. I'd spent so long avoiding risk, avoiding debt, avoiding mistakes, that I'd stopped moving forward. I was just maintaining. Let me ask you something, I said. If these opportunities are so good, why do they need investors? Why don't the developers just borrow from the bank? They do, but banks have limits on sector exposure, real estate projects, agricultural ventures, energy infrastructure. We can't fund everything, so developers bring in private equity, co-investors, people like you, people with money, people with capital they're willing to deploy. Yes, I sat back, watching the traffic crawl past on Ayala Avenue. I've never borrowed money in my life, Danielle. I know. It goes against everything I believe in. Does it? Or does it go against everything you were taught to believe? There's a difference. I didn't answer. Harvey, the richest man I ever worked with, told me something I'll never forget. He said, "Poor people think debt is dangerous. Rich people know debt is a tool. You're not poor. You're sitting on significant assets. The question is whether you're going to use them or just hold on to them until you die. That's morbid. It's realistic. You're 70. You've got 10, maybe 20 good years left. What are you going to do with them? Play it safe and leave your daughter a paid-off house? Or build something she'll actually be impressed by?" That stung. My daughter, Rebecca. We weren't close. She'd been distant since her mother passed, polite but cold. I'd always told myself it was grief, but maybe it was disappointment. Maybe she saw me as small, safe, boring. Maybe she was right. What would you do? I asked Danielle. If you were me, I'd leverage the Chicago property, borrow against it, not the full value, maybe 25%. That's $150,000. I'd deploy it into 2 or 3 solid opportunities, diversified. Real estate, agriculture, maybe one infrastructure play. Let them mature over 12 to 18 months. Then I'd take the returns, pay off the loan, and pocket the difference. Rinse and repeat. And if the investments fail, then you still have the property. You still have your retirement accounts. You're not risking everything. You're risking a fraction. Calculated risk. That's all this is. It sounded reasonable when she said it like that. Logical, strategic. I'd spent 50 years assessing risk in the insurance industry. Why was this any different? Let me think about it. Take your time, but not too much time. The Palawan Resort project closes in 3 weeks. After that, The pre-sale pricing is gone. She left me with the brochures again. I took them home. I studied them. I ran the numbers. The math worked. The returns were realistic if the projects delivered, and they were backed by reputable companies. Ayala Land, First General SM Development. These weren't fly-by-night operations. They were billion-dollar corporations. What was I so afraid of? I called my daughter that night. Rebecca, it's Dad. Hi, Dad. How are you? Polite. Distant. I'm good. I'm in Manila, still exploring retirement here. That's nice. Silence. Always silence with her. I'm thinking about making an investment. Oh? Real estate development. Resort property in Palawan. The returns look solid. Do you know what you're doing? There it was. The doubt. The assumption that I couldn't handle anything beyond my small, safe life. I spent 50 years in finance, Rebecca. Insurance. Not real estate. Numbers are numbers. If you say so. More silence. I just wanted to let you know. In case something happens. What would happen? Nothing. I wanted you to know. Okay. Well, good luck, Dad. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling smaller than I had in years. She didn't believe in me. Maybe she never had. Maybe no one had. I looked at the brochure spread across my desk. Palawan. Paradise. Luxury eco-resort. 30% below market value. 40% projected return in 18 months. I picked up my phone and texted Danielle. Let's talk about the Palawan project. I'm interested. She replied within minutes. Excellent. Let's meet tomorrow. I'll bring the paperwork. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else. Excitement, possibility, the feeling that maybe, finally, I was about to do something bold. I met Danielle at her office the next day. Not the cafe this time, her actual office inside the bank. It was sleek, professional, glass walls, modern furniture, framed certificates on the wall. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Have a seat, Harvey. Can I get you water? Coffee? I'm fine. She pulled out a thick folder and set it in front of me. Palawan Paradise Resort. Here's the full prospectus. Developer credentials, site plans, construction timeline, pre-sale pricing structure, projected market values. I flipped through it. Everything looked legitimate. Professional renderings of beachfront villas, financial projections, third-party market analysis. This is impressive. It's a solid project. They've already broken ground. Construction's ahead of schedule. Units are selling fast. How much are we talking? The entry investment is $150,000. That gets you a fractional ownership stake in the resort, 20% equity position. When the resort opens and units start selling, you'll receive your proportional share of the profits. Projected return is 40% within 18 months. Could be higher if the market stays strong. And to get the $150,000, I'd need to borrow against my Chicago property. Correct? We'd process a home equity line of credit. Your property's worth $600,000. You own it outright. The bank would lend you up to 70% of the value. That's $420,000 available, but you'd only draw $150,000. Keep the rest in reserve if you want to pursue other opportunities later. What's the interest rate? 4.2% annually. Very competitive. You'd make interest-only payments for the first 12 months. After that, you can pay down the principal or refinance. I did the math in my head. Interest-only payments on $150,000 at 4.2%. That's $630 a month. I could afford that easily from my retirement income. What if the resort project fails? Then you'd still owe the loan. But your property value far exceeds the loan amount. You'd have options: refinance, sell, restructure. You're not at risk of losing everything. Just $150,000, which you'd recoup from the sale of your property if it came to that. Harvey, you're not gambling here. You're making a strategic investment backed by collateral. This is what wealthy people do. They use leverage intelligently. I stared at the paperwork. My entire life, I'd avoided this. Debt, borrowing, risk. But my entire life, I'd also avoided growth, avoided boldness, avoided anything that felt uncertain. And where had that gotten me? Sitting alone in a foreign country, estranged from my daughter, wondering if I'd wasted 50 years playing it safe. What do I need to do? Danielle slid a stack of documents toward me. Sign here, and here, and here. I'll need copies of your property deed, tax records, proof of income. I can process everything through our international lending division. The whole thing takes about 2 weeks. I picked up the pen. My hand hesitated over the first signature line. Harvey. I looked up. She was watching me with those calm, professional eyes. You don't have to do this. If you're not comfortable, that's fine. But I need you to be honest with yourself about why you're hesitating. Is it because the numbers don't work? Or is it because you're afraid? I'm not afraid. Then sign. I signed. Then I signed again. And again. Page after page. Each signature felt like stepping off a cliff, but also like stepping into something new, something bigger than my small, careful life. When I finished, Danielle gathered the documents and smiled. Congratulations, Harvey. You just became an investor. I just became a borrower. Same thing. Just depends on your perspective. She stood and extended her hand. I shook it. Her grip was firm. Professional. I'll submit this today. You should have approval within a week. Funds will be dispersed directly to the resort developer. You'll receive quarterly updates on construction progress and sales projections. 18 months from now, you'll be sitting on a significant return. And if I'm not, then we'll deal with it. But I've been doing this a long time, Harvey. I don't put my clients into bad deals. It's bad for business. And bad for my reputation. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. I left the bank feeling strange. Not regret exactly, not fear, just uncertainty. Like I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. I went back to my apartment and sat on the balcony, staring out at the Manila skyline. Somewhere in this city, my $150,000 was about to be transferred to a resort developer in Palawan, a project I'd never seen in person, a company I'd never met, people I didn't know. But the bank was legitimate. Danielle was legitimate. The paperwork was legitimate. What could go wrong? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept running the numbers. $630 a month in interest, $150,000 borrowed, 40% projected return. That's $60,000 profit in 18 months, minus the interest payments. Still, $50,000 net. Not bad. Not bad at all. If it worked, I got up and pulled out the prospectus again. Read every page. The developer was called Coastal Ventures Incorporated, registered with the SEC. 15 years in business, portfolio of completed projects. Everything checked out. So why did I feel like I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life? I told myself it was just fear, old habits, conservative thinking. I'd spent so long avoiding risk that my brain didn't know how to process actually taking one. But this was different. This was calculated, strategic. This was what smart investors did. I repeated that to myself until I finally fell asleep. 1 week later, Danielle called. Harvey, good news. Your loan is approved. Funds will be dispersed tomorrow. Congratulations. That's it? That's it. You're officially an investor in Palawan Paradise Resort. Welcome to the game. I hung up and sat very still. It was done. $150,000 borrowed against the house I'd spent 30 years paying off, invested in a resort I'd never seen. There was no going back now. The first 3 months were fine. I received monthly updates from Coastal Ventures Incorporated, construction progress reports, photos of beach excavation, foundation work, framing. Everything looked on track. I paid my interest-only loan payments, $630 a month, automatically debited from my checking account. It was manageable, easy, even. I felt cautiously optimistic. Danielle and I still met for coffee occasionally. She'd ask about the resort project. I'd tell her it seemed fine. She'd smile and say, "I told you." Solid investment. Then month 4 arrived, and the update was different. "Dear investor, we regret to inform you that construction has been temporarily delayed due to permitting issues with the local government. We anticipate resolution within 30 to 60 days. Your investment remains secure. Thank you for your patience." I called Danielle immediately. "What does this mean?" "It means there's a permitting delay. It's normal in real estate development. Government bureaucracy. Red tape. Nothing to worry about." "How long will it take?" "They said 30 to 60 days. And if it takes longer, then it takes longer." "Harvey, this is construction. Delays happen. It doesn't mean the project is failing. I want to visit the site." She paused. "Why?" "Because I've invested $150,000 in something I've never seen in person. The site's restricted during construction. Insurance liability. You wouldn't be able to access it anyway. Then I want to meet with the developers." "Harvey, you're one of 50 investors. They're not going to meet with everyone individually. That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" "You trust the process. You review the updates. You wait for the project to complete. That's what investing is." I didn't like her tone. It was the first time she'd sounded even slightly defensive. "I just want reassurance." "Then look at the updates. Look at the photos. The work is happening. It's just slower than projected. That's construction. It's not a factory line." I hung up feeling uneasy. But she was right. Delays happened. I'd worked in corporate America long enough to know that projects rarely finished on time. I waited. Month 5, another update, more delays. Environmental impact assessment required by the provincial government. Another 60 days. Month 6, same story. Contractor dispute. Timeline pushed back. I called Danielle again. "This is getting concerning. It's frustrating." "I agree, but it's not concerning. The developer is communicating. They're being transparent." "That's a good sign. I want documentation, contracts, proof of my ownership stake. I'll request it from the developer." "When?" "I'll send the request today. I want it within a week." "Harvey, I don't control their response time. You control whether you send the request." "Send it today." She sighed. "Fine. I'll send it today." A week passed. No documentation. I called her again. She didn't answer. I called the bank. They transferred me to her extension. Voicemail. I left a message. No response. I emailed her. No response. 2 weeks passed. I finally reached her. "Danielle, I've been trying to contact you for 2 weeks. I'm sorry, Harvey. I've been slammed with other clients. What do you need?" "I need the ownership documentation I requested 3 weeks ago. I'm still waiting for the developer to send it. Why is it taking so long?" "I don't know. I've followed up twice. They said they're processing it." "Processing what? A piece of paper with my name on it? It's more complicated than that. Legal documentation, corporate records. These things take time. I'm starting to feel like you're avoiding me." "I'm not avoiding you. I'm just busy. And frankly, Harvey, you're being paranoid. The project is fine. It's just delayed. Delays are normal. Then get me proof. I'm trying." She hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I went online and searched for Coastal Ventures Incorporated. Their website looked professional, sleek, photos of completed projects, contact information. I called the number listed. It rang, and rang, and rang. No answer, no voicemail. I tried their email. No response. I searched for news articles about Palawan Paradise Resort. Nothing. Not a single mention. No local news, no real estate blogs, No investment forums. Nothing. I searched for Coastal Ventures Incorporated projects. The website claimed they'd completed 15 developments over 15 years, but I couldn't find evidence of any of them. No photos, no addresses, no third-party verification. I felt my stomach drop. I called Danielle again. This time, I didn't ask. I demanded. I need to visit the site. This week. I don't care about insurance liability. I need to see it in person. Harvey, I told you, I don't care what you told me. I need to see it. If you can't arrange it, I'll go myself. Silence. Fine. I'll see what I can do. She called back 2 days later. The developer said you can visit next month. They're scheduling a site tour for investors. Next month? I want to go this week. The site's not accessible this week. Safety regulations. They have a tour scheduled for next month. Take it or leave it. I took it. What choice did I have? The month crawled by. I stopped sleeping. I kept running searches, kept looking for any evidence that Palawan Paradise Resort existed. Kept coming up empty. The scheduled tour date arrived. Danielle texted me the night before. Tour canceled. Typhoon warning. Rescheduled for next month. I didn't believe her. I checked the weather. No typhoon. Clear skies in Palawan. I called her. There's no typhoon. There's a tropical depression. They're being cautious. I'm going anyway. Harvey, the site's closed. Then I'll stand outside and look at it. She didn't respond. I booked a flight to Puerto Princesa, rented a car, drove to the coordinates listed on the prospectus. The address didn't exist. There was no resort, no construction site, no foundation, no framing, no beach excavation, just empty land, overgrown, untouched. I stood there in the hot sun, staring at nothing. $150,000. Gone. Invested in a project that never existed. I called Danielle. She didn't answer. I called the bank. They said she was unavailable. I flew back to Manila, went straight to the bank. Asked to see her. The receptionist told me she was in a meeting. I sat in the lobby and waited. 4 hours. She never came out. I went home and pulled out every piece of paperwork, read every word, looked for loopholes, guarantees, protections. There was a clause. Page 7. Investor acknowledges that all real estate investments carry inherent risk, including total loss of capital. Developer makes no guarantees of returns, timelines, or project completion. I'd signed it. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. I didn't hear from Danielle for 6 weeks. I called. I emailed. I went to the bank. She was never available. I started to accept that the money was gone. $150,000. Lost. I'd have to tighten my budget, pay off the loan slowly, cut into my retirement savings, live smaller. Then she called. Harvey, I'm so sorry I've been out of touch. It's been a nightmare few weeks. Her voice sounded strained, almost genuine. I went to Palawan. There's nothing there. I know. I just found out. The developer disappeared. It's a disaster. I feel terrible. You feel terrible? I lost $150,000. I know. Harvey, I didn't know this would happen. I vetted them. I checked their credentials. They had a track record. I've never had a client lose money like this before. What am I supposed to do? I'm working on it. I've reported them to the SEC. I've contacted authorities. But honestly, the money's probably gone. I felt numb. So that's it. Maybe not. What do you mean? There might be a way to recover it. But you'd have to act fast. I should have hung up. I should have told her to go to hell. But I didn't. Because I was desperate. And desperate people make stupid decisions. What are you talking about? I have a client, a developer in Davao, agricultural export business, organic coconut oil, EU certified, contracts already signed with buyers in Germany and France, high yield returns, 60% within 12 months. Danielle, I just lost $150,000. I know. That's why this could help. You invest now, you recover your loss, and make profit. With what money? You still have credit available on your home equity line. You drew $150. You're approved for $420. You have $270 left. You want me to borrow more money? I want you to recover what you lost. By investing in another scheme? It's not a scheme. This is a legitimate operation. I visited the facility myself. I've met the owners. I've reviewed the contracts with European buyers. This is real, Harvey. The resort was supposed to be real. I know, and I feel horrible about that, but this is different. I've personally verified this one. I'm not relying on third-party information. I've done my own due diligence. I wanted to say no. I wanted to hang up and block her number and cut my losses. But all I could think about was that $150,000 gone, and the loan payments I'd be making for years, and my daughter's voice. Do you know what you're doing? Maybe I could fix this. Maybe I could recover. Maybe this was my chance to turn a disaster into a comeback. How much? $200,000. That gets you a 20% equity stake in the export operation. European buyers are already committed. First shipment goes out in 6 months. You'll see returns within 12 months. 60% projected. That's $120,000 profit. Enough to recover your Palawan loss and still come out ahead. And if this one disappears too, it won't. Harvey, I promise you. I've learned from the Palawan disaster. I've verified everything personally. This is legitimate. I don't trust you. I don't blame you. But I'm trying to make this right. I feel responsible for what happened. Let me help you recover. I sat in silence, staring at nothing. $200,000. More debt. More risk. But what was the alternative? Accept the loss. Admit I'd been scammed? Tell my daughter I'd failed? I need to think about it. You have 72 hours. After that, the opportunity closes. They're finalizing their investor pool. That's a pressure tactic. It's reality. They have other investors ready. I'm holding a spot for you because I feel responsible, but I can't hold it forever. She hung up. I sat there for hours, thinking, calculating, trying to figure out what to do. The smart move was to walk away, cut my losses, accept that I'd made a mistake, and move on. But I'd never been the kind of man who accepted defeat. I'd spent 50 years solving problems, managing risks, finding solutions. Maybe this was just another problem to solve. I called her back the next day. I'll do it. You're sure? No, but I don't see another option. Okay, I'll process the paperwork. Same structure as before. Home equity draw. 4.2% interest. You'll draw $200,000. Funds go directly to the agricultural operation. You'll receive quarterly reports and profit distributions. I want to visit the facility. Absolutely. I'll arrange it. You can go next month after the paperwork processes. I want to go before I sign. Harvey, the opportunity closes in 72 hours. There's no time. Then I'm not signing. Silence. Fine. I'll see if I can arrange a video call with the owners. You can ask questions directly. I want to see the facility. I'll send you photos, videos, documentation, everything you need to feel comfortable. Danielle, yes? If this is another scam, I'll destroy you. Her voice went cold. It's not a scam, Harvey. Sign the papers or don't. But don't threaten me. She hung up. I signed the papers 2 days later, not because I trusted her, but because I couldn't live with losing $150,000 without at least trying to recover it. The loan processed, $200,000 borrowed, total debt, $350,000, interest payments, $1,470 a month. I was 70 years old, retired, and I was drowning in debt for the first time in my life. The agricultural operation sent updates for the first 2 months, photos of coconut processing facilities, export certifications, shipping schedules. Then the updates stopped. I called Danielle. Where are the updates? I'll check with them. I want an answer today. I'll do my best. She called back that evening. They said there's been a delay in the European shipments, logistics issues, port strikes in Hamburg. It's temporary. When will it be resolved? They're estimating 60 days. I hung up without responding. 60 days passed. No updates, no shipments, no contact. I searched online for the company. Nothing. No registration, no website, no evidence it existed. I called Danielle. Her number was disconnected. I went to the bank. They told me she no longer worked there. What do you mean she doesn't work here? She resigned 3 weeks ago. Where did she go? We can't share that information. She processed 2 loans for me totaling $350,000. We can provide you with your loan documentation, but we can't discuss former employees. I felt the room spinning. Those loans were fraudulent. The loans are legitimate, sir. You signed the paperwork. The funds were dispersed to the accounts you authorized. I didn't authorize anything. She told me they were investments. According to our records, you signed loan agreements that explicitly stated the funds would be transferred to designated investment accounts. What you did with those funds after that is not the bank's responsibility. I walked out, went home, sat on my balcony, stared at nothing. $350,000, gone, and I still owed every penny. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 weeks. I couldn't. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and try to figure out how I'd been so stupid. $350,000. I kept running the numbers. My retirement savings could cover it if I liquidated everything. But then I'd have nothing. No cushion. No security. Just monthly loan payments until I died. I stopped answering my phone, stopped checking email, stopped pretending I was okay. Then Danielle called. I don't know how she got my new number. Maybe the bank gave it to her. Maybe she'd always had it. Harvey, please don't hang up. I should have, but I didn't. What do you want? I want to explain. I want to make this right. You can't make this right. I can try. Please, just meet me. One conversation. If you still hate me after, I'll leave you alone. I already hate you. I know. I deserve that. But please, one coffee. One conversation. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because I wanted to hear her admit what she'd done. Maybe because I needed someone to blame in person. Maybe because I was just lonely and broken and desperate for human contact. We met at a cafe near my apartment. She looked different, tired. Her hair wasn't as neat. Her clothes were less polished. She ordered coffee. I didn't order anything. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't respond. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. I didn't know Coastal Ventures was fake. I didn't know the agricultural operation would disappear. I was scammed too. You were scammed? Yes. I invested my own money in Coastal Ventures. $50,000. I lost everything too. I didn't believe her. Why should I believe anything you say? You shouldn't, but it's the truth. I was greedy. I saw these opportunities and I thought they were real. I thought I was helping my clients and helping myself. I was wrong. You destroyed my life. I know. I'm 70 years old. I have $350,000 in debt. I'll never recover. She looked down at her coffee. There might be one more option. No, Harvey, absolutely not. I'm not borrowing another penny. This one is different. They're always different. This is real estate. Makati. Verified. Legal. Backed by SM Development. I've confirmed everything myself. Not through third parties. Personally verified. I don't care. It's a pre-construction flip. Condo units in the new SM Tower. They're selling to investors at 30% below market value. You buy now, hold for 6 months, flip when the building opens. Guaranteed 40% return. Nothing is guaranteed. SM Development is the largest real estate company in the Philippines. They've delivered hundreds of projects. This isn't some fly-by-night operation. This is legitimate. No, you'd need $135,000. That would max out your home equity line. But the return would be enough to pay off everything. All your loans. You'd be debt-free again. I stared at her. You're insane. I'm trying to help you. You've helped me into bankruptcy. This is your last chance, Harvey. If you don't take it, you'll spend the rest of your life paying off debt. This is the only way out. There is no way out. You made sure of that. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I pulled it back. Please, she said. Trust me one more time. Why would I? Because you don't have a choice. She was right. I didn't have a choice. I could walk away now and spend the rest of my life drowning in debt, or I could take one more chance. One more risk. One more shot at recovery. It was insane. Reckless. Suicidal. But I was already dead. What did I have to lose? Show me the paperwork. She pulled out a folder. SM Development. Verified ownership. SEC registration. Building permits. Sales contracts. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked real. You're sure this time? I'm sure. If you're lying, I'm not lying. I signed. $135,000. The final draw on my home equity line. Total debt, $485,000. I didn't feel anything. No fear, no hope. Just numbness. She processed the paperwork the next day. Called me when it was done. Funds are transferred. You're officially an investor. 6 months from now, you'll have everything back. Sure, I mean it, Harvey. This is real. I hung up. I didn't believe her, but I also didn't care anymore. 4 weeks later, I got an email. Dear investor, due to unforeseen structural engineering issues, SM Makati Tower project has been indefinitely postponed. All investor funds are non-refundable as per clause 8.3 of your investment agreement. We apologize for any inconvenience. I read it 3 times. Then I opened my loan statements. $485,000. Borrowed against a house I'd spent 30 years paying off. Gone. All of it. Gone. I sat very still. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't break anything. Just sat. I think that was the moment I stopped being Harvey Mansfield. I became something else. Something smaller. Something broken. The letter came on a Tuesday. Plain white envelope. Official looking. I knew what it was before I opened it. Notice of default. You have failed to make loan payments for 3 consecutive months. As per the terms of your home equity line of credit agreement, the lender hereby initiates foreclosure proceedings on the property located at 2847 North Sheffield Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. I read it twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. I'd missed 3 payments. I knew I'd missed them. I just hadn't cared. Each payment was $1,470. I didn't have it anymore. I drained my checking account. Started pulling from my retirement savings, then stopped because I realized it didn't matter. I couldn't pay off $485,000. Not at 70. Not with no income except Social Security. The bank was going to take the house. The house I'd lived in for 32 years. The house I'd brought my wife home to. The house where I'd raised Rebecca. The house I'd finally paid off 5 years ago. Gone. I called Danielle. The number I had was disconnected. I called the bank. I need to speak with Danielle Cruz. I'm sorry, sir. Miss Cruz no longer works here. I know she doesn't work there. I need her contact information. We can't provide that. She defrauded me. I need to reach her. If you believe you've been defrauded, you should contact the authorities. I'm contacting you. You employed her. You processed the loans. You're responsible. Sir, the loans were processed according to standard procedures. You signed all the documentation. The funds were transferred to the accounts you authorized. The bank fulfilled its obligations. The investments were fake. What you did with the borrowed funds is not the bank's responsibility. You took out a home equity line of credit. You received the funds. The bank expects repayment according to the terms you agreed to. I can't pay. Then we'll proceed with foreclosure. I'm 70 years old. Sorry, sir. I understand this is difficult, but the bank has policies. I hung up, sat there staring at the foreclosure notice. I thought about calling Rebecca, telling her what happened, asking for help, but I couldn't. How could I explain this? How could I tell her I'd borrowed nearly $500,000 against the house she grew up in and lost it all to a woman I barely knew? I hired a lawyer instead, Carlos Reyes, Filipino attorney specializing in fraud cases. I found him online. He met me at a coffee shop in Makati. "Tell me what happened," he said. I told him everything. The seminar, the coffee meetings, the loans, the fake investments, the missing money. He took notes, asked questions, reviewed the paperwork I'd brought. When I finished, he sat back and sighed. "This is bad. Can I get the money back? Probably not. Can I sue the bank?" "You signed the loan agreements. The bank processed everything correctly. They're not liable for what happened to the funds after disbursement." "What about Danielle?" "We can try to locate her, file a criminal complaint for fraud. But even if we find her and win a judgment, that doesn't mean you'll recover the money." "She probably doesn't have it anymore." "Then what do I do?" "You could try to negotiate with the bank. Ask for a loan modification, extended payment terms, reduced interest rate, something that makes the debt manageable. They're foreclosing. Then you have two options. Let them take the property, or find a way to pay." "I can't pay." "Then they'll take the property." I felt hollow. How did this happen? You trusted someone you shouldn't have, and you signed documents without fully understanding the risks. I understood the risks. Did you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you believed you were making safe investments backed by legitimate companies. But the documents you signed were loan agreements, not investment contracts. You borrowed money and gave it to people who disappeared. The bank doesn't care what you did with the money. They just want repayment. So I'm responsible. Yes. For all of it. Yes. Even though I was scammed. Even though you were scammed. I paid him $200 for the consultation. He told me to contact him if I wanted to pursue legal action against Danielle. I told him I'd think about it. I never called him back. I went home and looked at photos of my Chicago house on my phone. The blue door I'd painted myself. The backyard where Rebecca learned to ride a bike. The kitchen where my wife taught me to make lasagna. All of it gone. I tried calling Danielle one more time. Different number. I'd found it through someone who used to work at the bank. It rang. She answered. "Hello? Danielle? It's Harvey." Silence. "I have nothing to say to you. I'm being foreclosed on. I'm sorry. Are you?" "Yes." "Then give me the money back." "I don't have it." "You have 50,000. You said you invested in Coastal Ventures. That's gone too. I don't believe you. I don't care what you believe. Danielle, please. I'm begging you. Help me. I can't help you, Harvey. I'm sorry. I have to go." "Wait." She hung up. I called back. The number was disconnected. I sat there holding my phone, feeling something crack inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. I'd spent my entire life building security, avoiding risk, staying safe. And in 6 months, I'd lost everything. Not because of bad luck, not because of a disaster, because I'd been stupid, greedy, desperate, lonely, all of it. I wanted to blame Danielle. I wanted to blame the bank. I wanted to blame anyone but myself. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd signed every document. I'd made every decision. I'd ignored every red flag. This was my fault. 2 months later, The bank sent a representative to my apartment in Manila. He was young, professional, polite. Mr. Mansfield, I'm here to inform you that your property at 2847 North Sheffield Avenue has been sold at foreclosure auction. The proceeds will be applied to your outstanding loan balance. You currently owe $110,000 after the sale. $110,000? Yes, sir. The property sold for $375,000. That amount was applied to your loan balance of $485,000. The remaining balance is $110,000. The house was worth $600,000, not at foreclosure auction. Properties sell below market value in those circumstances. So I lost my house and I still owe money. Yes, sir. What happens now? The bank will work with you to establish a payment plan for the remaining balance. Or you can settle for a lump sum if you have access to funds. I don't. Then we'll establish a payment plan. The minimum monthly payment will be $850. I can't afford that. Then we'll have to pursue other collection methods, wage garnishment, asset seizure. I'm retired. I don't have wages. I don't have assets. Then we'll continue to accrue interest and penalties until the debt is satisfied or you file for bankruptcy. He left. I sat in my empty apartment. No house. No savings. $110,000 in debt. At 70, I thought about my daughter. I hadn't called her since I signed the first loan. I couldn't. What would I say? I pulled out my phone, stared at her name in my contacts, put the phone down. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I spent 3 weeks trying to find Danielle. I asked around at the bank. No one would tell me anything. I searched social media. Nothing. I went to her old office. New person at her desk. I asked a few employees if they knew where she went. They shook their heads. Didn't want to get involved. Then someone gave me a name. Marissa Santos, another loan officer. She'd worked in the same department as Danielle. I found her at lunch. Small restaurant near the bank. She was eating alone. Marissa Santos? She looked up. Suspicious. Yes? My name is Harvey Mansfield. I was a client of Danielle Cruz. I need to talk to you. I don't know anything about her clients. Please. 5 minutes. She hesitated, then gestured to the empty seat across from her. I sat. What do you want to know? Where is she? I don't know. But you worked with her. We worked in the same department. We weren't friends. Did you know what she was doing? Marissa stopped eating, looked down at her plate. I had suspicions. And you didn't say anything? Say what? She was good at her job. She processed loans. Her clients signed paperwork. Everything looked legitimate. The investments were fake. I didn't know that for sure. I noticed things. What things? Clients who kept borrowing more. Clients who came back angry. Clients who couldn't reach her. It happened more than it should have. And the bank didn't care? The bank cared about numbers. Danielle processed a lot of loans. She brought in revenue. As long as the paperwork was clean, management didn't ask questions. So they knew. They suspected. But they couldn't prove anything. And without proof, they couldn't act. They could have warned people. Marissa met my eyes. Would you have listened? I didn't answer. Because she was right. I wouldn't have. Was I the only one? No. How many others? I don't know exactly. But you weren't the first. And you probably weren't the last. What happened to her? She was investigated. Internally. Quietly. They couldn't find enough evidence to fire her for cause. So they moved her. Different branch. Different role. She ended up in Manila. And she did the same thing here. Probably. And the bank let her. The bank protected itself. That's what banks do. She stood up, put money on the table. I'm sorry for what happened to you, Mr. Mansfield, but I can't help you. If you want justice, contact the authorities. But don't expect much. People like Danielle are good at covering their tracks. She left. I sat there alone, staring at nothing. The bank knew, and they did nothing. They just moved her around like a problem they didn't want to deal with. And I was collateral damage. I tried one last time to reach Danielle. I sent an email to an old address I'd found in my records. Danielle, I know you probably won't read this, but I need you to know what you did to me. I lost my house. The house I spent 30 years paying off. I'm 70 years old and I owe $110,000. I'll never be able to repay. I trusted you. I believed you, and you destroyed me. I don't know if you feel guilty. I don't know if you care, but I need you to know that I'm not just a number. I'm a person, and you ruined my life. Harvey, I sent it. Checked my email obsessively for days. No response. I sent another message. Through a mutual contact. Someone who used to work at the bank. She promised to pass it along. 2 weeks later, she texted me. Message delivered. Read receipt confirmed. No response. So Danielle had seen it. She'd read it, and she'd chosen not to reply. That hurt more than anything. Not the money, not the house. The silence, the indifference, the fact that I'd meant so little to her that she couldn't even bother to respond. I realized then that there would be no confrontation, no explanation, no apology, no closure. She'd used me, destroyed me, and walked away. And I'd let her, because I was desperate, because I was lonely, because I wanted to believe I was smarter than I was, because I wanted to believe someone like her could see value in someone like me. But I was never valuable to her. I was just a target, an elderly man with assets and no one to protect him. Easy prey. I stopped looking for her after that, stopped hoping for answers, stopped waiting for closure. There was no closure. There was just debt and emptiness. And the rest of my life. I lost my house in October. By November, I'd moved into a smaller apartment in Quezon City, cheaper rent, farther from everything. But I couldn't afford BGC anymore. The new place was small. 1 bedroom, thin walls, broken air conditioning, but it was shelter. I started looking for work at 70. I'd never imagined I'd be job hunting again. But I needed income. The bank wanted $850 a month. Social Security covered about $2,000 a month. Rent was $600. That left me with $550 for food, utilities, transportation, everything else. It wasn't enough. I found a consulting gig, insurance analysis for a small Filipino company. Part-time, remote, paid $300 a month. It helped. Barely. I sent the bank $850 every month. Like clockwork. Automated transfer. It hurt every time. But I did it. Because what else could I do? People ask me why I stayed in the Philippines, why I didn't go back to Chicago. I tell them I can't afford to leave, which is true. A plane ticket costs money I don't have. Starting over in the U.S. costs money I don't have. Everything costs money I don't have. But that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is I stayed because I can't face going back. I'd have to tell people what happened. I'd have to admit I lost everything. I'd have to look my daughter in the eye and explain why the house she grew up in is gone, why her inheritance is gone, why I'm broke and in debt and broken. I can't do that. So I stay. I live in my small apartment. I work my small job. I pay my debt slowly, month by month, year by year. I'll probably die before it's paid off, but at least I'm trying. I don't talk about Danielle. I don't tell people what happened. When neighbors ask why I'm here, I say I retired abroad. Simple, easy. They don't need to know the rest. I think about her sometimes. Wonder where she is. Wonder if she feels guilty. Wonder if she ever thinks about me. Probably not. I was just one of many. A number, a transaction. She's probably moved on to the next city, the next bank, the next victim, and she'll keep doing it, because people like her don't stop, they just move. And people like me, we don't learn. We want to believe. We want to trust. We want to think we're smarter than we are. We want to think someone sees value in us. And that desperation, that loneliness, that need to believe, that's what destroys us. I called Rebecca last month, finally, after 2 years. Dad? Hi, sweetheart. Where have you been? Manila, I told you. You haven't called in 2 years. I know. I'm sorry. What happened? I almost told her, almost explained everything. But I couldn't. Nothing. I've just been adjusting, settling in. Are you okay? I'm fine. You don't sound fine. I'm just tired. Dad, talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. You disappear for 2 years and there's nothing to talk about? I'm retired. I'm living abroad. That's all. Silence. Did something happen with the house? My heart stopped. What do you mean? I drove by it last month. Someone else is living there. I closed my eyes. I sold it. You sold it? Why? I didn't need it anymore. I'm here now. You loved that house. I loved your mother. The house was just a building. More silence. How much did you get for it? Enough. Dad, Rebecca, please. I don't want to talk about this. You sold the house Mom loved and you won't even tell me why? Because it's my house, my decision. It was my home, and now it's someone else's. That's how life works. I hung up. I couldn't keep lying. But I couldn't tell the truth either, so I just ended the conversation. She hasn't called back. I don't blame her. I wouldn't call back either. I sit on my balcony most evenings now. Watch the sun set over the city. Think about my life. 50 years of work, 50 years of discipline, 50 years of doing everything right, and it all disappeared in 6 months. Because I was too cautious for too long, then too reckless for too short a time. I keep thinking about what Danielle said. You've been too conservative. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been. But being conservative kept me safe for 50 years. Being bold destroyed me in 6 months. So which was the right choice? I don't know anymore. All I know is I'm 70 years old. I live in a small apartment in a foreign country. I work part-time to pay off debt I'll never fully repay. I'm estranged from my daughter. I have no friends, no family nearby, no community, just me and my debt and my regret. People romanticize retirement abroad. They see the beaches, the cheap cost of living, the adventure. They don't see this, the isolation, the vulnerability, the way loneliness makes you stupid, the way desperation makes you weak. I was debt-free 2 years ago, financially secure, comfortable. Now I owe $110,000. I lost my home. I lost my dignity. I lost everything I spent 50 years building. And the worst part? It was my fault, not Danielle's, mine. She pulled the trigger, but I handed her the gun. I signed every document. I ignored every red flag. I chose to believe because believing felt better than accepting I was alone. That's the truth. I can't escape. I wasn't scammed. I was complicit. I wanted to believe so badly that I ignored reality, and that's on me. So I sit here every night, watching the sunset, paying my debt, surviving, not living, just surviving. And I wonder if I'd stayed conservative, if I'd stayed cautious, if I'd stayed scared, would I be happier? Would I be better off? Or would I just be a different kind of broken? I don't know. I'll never know. All I know is this. At 70 years old, I learned the most expensive lesson of my life. Trust is a luxury, and loneliness is a weapon. And sometimes the person who destroys you is the one you let in because you were too desperate to see the truth. Danielle didn't destroy me with a spreadsheet and a smile. She destroyed me because I let her. Because I needed to believe I was worth investing in. Because I needed to believe I wasn't just a lonely old man dying slowly in a foreign country. But that's exactly what I was. And that's exactly what I am. And no amount of money, no amount of debt, no amount of regret will ever change that. So I stay, I work, I pay, I survive, and I wait for the end. Because that's all that's left now. The debt, the waiting, and the truth. I destroyed myself, and I'll die knowing that. That's my punishment. Not the money, not the house. The knowing that I did this, and I can't undo it, ever.